Sultanate of Oman television. First, the headlines. The Syrian security forces regain control of areas south of Damascus from the rebels. Tens of Palestinian protesters are injured during confrontations with Israeli army at the Gaza border. And an Omani researcher discovers a new type of fungus that causes infection to humans and is resistant to antibiotics. Those were the headlines, and now for the news in detail. Hundreds of Syrian rebels left an area south of Damascus yesterday, leaving the capital threatened only by the Daesh group. 15 buses carrying hundreds of fighters and their relatives left the towns of Yalda, Babila and Beit Saham on the southern edge of Damascus. In all, 8,400 people had been evacuated from the three towns since a deal was reached 1 week ago for the negotiated withdrawals. Government forces have been pressing a ferocious weeks-long assault against the rebels and continue to carry out airstrikes there. The agreement for Yalda, Babila and Beit Saham was reached on May the 3rd and follows a pattern of similar deals through which Syria's government has recaptured swaths of territory around Damascus. The departure of the last group of rebel fighters and their families from Yalda, Babila and Beit Saham marked the conclusion of a week of evacuations from the three towns. The government security forces were preparing to enter the three towns. Gaza activists burned tires near the sealed border with Israel today in a seventh weekly protest aimed at shaking off a decade-old blockade of their territory. Israeli soldiers fired tear gas volleys from the other side of the border fence. The protest came just 3 days ahead of what the leader of Gaza's ruling Hamas group has said will be a march by tens of thousands who could burst through the border fence into Israel. Yahya Sinwar said the crowd on Monday will be unarmed and peaceful, but like a starving tiger in pent-up anger and unpredictability. Israel has warned that it will prevent any border breach. It has stuck to its open fire policies, such as targeting main instigators and those approaching the fence, despite growing international criticism. Israel says it has a right to defend its border and has accused Hamas of using the protests as a cover for attacking the border. Since the Hamas-led marches began in late March, 40 Palestinian protesters have been killed and more than 1,700 wounded by Israel army fire. Europe's heavyweight economies took steps today to safeguard their commercial and political interests in Iran, seeking to keep the nuclear deal with Tehran alive after Washington pulled out and said sanctions would follow. Germany and France have significant trade links with Iran and remain committed to the nuclear agreement, as does Britain, and all three countries' foreign ministers plan to meet on Tuesday to discuss it. That is part of a flurry of diplomatic activity lined up following Tuesday's unilateral withdrawal from what US President Donald Trump called a horrible one-sided deal, a move accompanied by the threat of penalties against any foreign firms doing business in Iran. German Chancellor Angela Merkel said today that the US withdrawal from the Iran nuclear deal isn't a reason to dump decades of transatlantic ties. Speaking in the western German city of Münster, Merkel described the withdrawal as a serious event. She said that the societies of Europe and the US share similar values, but also that European nations need more allies to act as a power for peace. She said Germany will continue to support the transatlantic partnership wherever possible. Merkel also said the unilateral US withdrawal from the Iran nuclear deal undermines confidence in the global order. Germany, France and Britain have vowed to keep the 2015 nuclear agreement alive following the US decision to walk away. Merkel added that she thought it was not prudent to unilaterally cancel a deal that was agreed upon, that was unanimously approved in the UN Security Council. Meanwhile, France's Finance Minister Bruno Le Maire in Paris said there is a realization among all European states that they cannot keep going in the direction they are headed today, whereby they submit to American decisions. Le Maire said Paris was seeking US waivers and longer transition periods over Iran for French companies, including Renault and Total, while pressing for European Union measures to improve the bloc's economic sovereignty in the longer term. French exports to Iran doubled to 1.5 billion euros last year, driven by jets and aircraft and automobile parts. The head of the World Health Organization, WHO, said today that Ebola vaccines will be shipped as quickly as possible to the Democratic Republic of the Congo as the number of suspected cases in the latest outbreak grows day by day. Dr. Peter Salama, the agency's emergencies chief, told reporters in Geneva that the WHO still needs Congo's final authorization, which is expected in the coming days. 2 cases of Ebola have been confirmed in the latest outbreak in a remote northwestern part of Congo. The country's health minister yesterday announced the first death since the outbreak was declared early this week, though the hemorrhagic fever blamed for the death has not been confirmed as Ebola. There is no specific treatment for Ebola. A new experimental vaccine has been shown to be highly effective, though quantities are currently limited and it needs to be kept in very specific conditions, proving a logistical challenge in a very hard way to reach the area. And now back to some more local news. An Omani researcher discovered a new type of fungus that causes infection to humans and is resistant to antibiotics. This important discovery, reached by Dr. Abdullah Al-Hatmi in the Netherlands, will lead to the diagnosis and treatment of a great number of patients, which was not available before. He started his research in 2013 when conducting his doctorate degree study in the University of Amsterdam. Dr. Abdullah Al-Hatmi is the first Omani who was selected as a member at the European Union of Scientists in the field of medical fungus. More than 500 insolvent cases will be handled through the initiative project Fak Kurba in its 5th edition this year. The inauguration of the initiative was presided over by His Excellency Dr. Fuad bin Jafar Al-Sajwani, Minister of Agriculture and Fisheries Wealth. The social campaign aims to help Omani individuals who are unable to pay their debts and who are sentenced to prison terms. The campaign is funded by members of the Omani community, namely the elites. The launching of the campaign coincides with the holy month of Ramadan and is expected to witness an active participation from Omanis in various governorates of the Sultanate. The campaign last year dealt with 425 cases, namely those sentenced in criminal cases in various courts in the Sultanate. It is worth mentioning that Fak Kurba campaign has freed more than 780 prisoners since its establishment. Still to come in our news bulletin. The unique species of turtles, breathtaking scenery and comfortable weather attract thousands of tourists to Ras Al Jin's Turtle Reserve in the Niyaba of Ras Al Had. Welcome back to the news from the Sultanate of Oman Television. Directorate General of Education in the Governorate of North Sharqiya held a ceremony to celebrate Teacher Day for the year 2017 to 2018. During the ceremony, a number of male and female teachers, supervisory and administrative personnel cadres in the Governorate were honoured. The ceremony came in recognition of teachers' roles and their exerted efforts in educating and socializing younger generations, as they are considered future builders of the nation. The event is considered a golden opportunity for teachers to meet their counterparts, which strengthens the work spirit of teachers to put more efforts in the educational process. The event included a number of social and cultural activities like delivering poems on the love of the teacher and his significant role. In order to enhance competitiveness among its students, Salalah Institute of Islamic Sciences honored students who excelled in their study and educational activities. A number of teachers were also honored during the ceremony. On the sideline of the honoring ceremony, an exhibition was organized for student works and activities in the fields of electronic projects, photography, and fine arts. Salalah Institute of Islamic Sciences is one of the educational institutions in the Sultanate that aims to provide the Omani society with well-educated graduates in the fields of Islamic teaching and principles. The Ministry of Higher Education hosted the University of Birmingham Graduates Forum. The event came in preparation for the participation of graduates in the International Forum for the Graduates of the University, which is an annual gathering for more than 220 graduates from 20 countries around the world. They discussed the establishment of a communication network among them and exchange experiences. They also tackled challenges facing students in their study and life abroad. More than 41,000 tourists, mostly foreigners, visited Ras Al Jin's reserve in the Niyaba of Ras Al Had in the Wilaya of Sur last year, with 37% increase compared to 2016. The comfortable weather throughout the year and breathtaking landscape of the Niyaba of Ras Al Had, along with its geographical location, are the main factors which attract tourists, along with the fact that the reserve includes unique species of turtles. The reserve, with its pristine beaches and white sands, is considered the best place to watch unique turtles in the Arabian Sea and the Indian Ocean. The reserve includes interactive museum with research laboratories and a wide range of amenities for visitors to learn everything about turtles. It is worth mentioning that the best time to travel and see the turtle hatching is during summertime between May and September. This is the Sultanate of Oman television. Before we end tonight's bulletin, here are the main points once again. The Syrian security forces regain control of areas south of Damascus from the rebels. Tens of Palestinian protesters are injured during confrontations with Israeli army at the Gaza border. And an Omani researcher discovers a new type of fungus that causes infection to humans and is resistant to antibiotics. With that, we come to the end of tonight's news bulletin. From all of us here at the newsroom and the studios, it's good night.